month after Mrs. Glynn accused me, I had nothing to do with her. Sophia didn't either. She was never going to speak to her again, she said. Then, one Friday afternoon toward the end of September, Mrs. Glynn telephoned. "Barnaby Gatlin," she said. "This is Grace Glynn. How are you?" "Fine." "I was wondering," she said after a pause, "would you be so kind as to come to my house this evening?" "Your house?" "Just for a little chat. It won't take long." I said, "I guess I'll pass on that, Mrs. Glynn," and I hung up. When the phone rang again, it was Sophia. "You'll never guess who called," I said. "Aunt Grace," Sophia told me. "I just now got off the phone with her." "What's she trying to pull?" I asked. "She didn't say, but I guess we'll find out tonight. I told her we'd stop by." "I'm not stopping by," I said. "Oh, Barnaby, I think she wants to apologize. Please, Barnaby." I kept quiet for a moment, and I said, "All right, hon, for your sake." When Sophia arrived, she said, "Now, Barnaby, promise you'll be nice. She's just a helpless old lady. Promise you won't forget that." But it seemed to be Sophia who forgot. "You are a person my niece regards highly," Mrs. Glynn began by saying to me, "and Ray Oakley isn't half the worker that you were. I propose we let bygones be bygones." It was then that Sophia's attitude changed. "If that doesn't take the cake," she told her aunt. "You owe Barnaby more than that, Aunt Grace. You owe him an apology." I'd never seen her like this. I felt kind of flattered. We'll just put it behind us," I said. "No big deal." "Wonderful," her aunt told me. "And may I expect you to resume your regular hours?" "Over my dead body he'll resume his regular hours," Sophia cried. "You found the money, didn't you, and you don't have the courage to say so." Mrs. Glynn said quaveringly, "I don't know how I could have been so forgetful. I've been listening to everybody's warnings, that I shouldn't inform all and sundry where I kept my cash. So I took it out of the flour bin and I moved it elsewhere. I moved it to the pocket of my winter bathrobe. Then I don't know, I must be getting senile. I looked inside the flour bin and I saw there was no money and I forgot I'd moved it. And then this morning I was getting some of my woolens out and I saw my winter bathrobe and I said, oh, good heavens above, that's where I moved my money to. I've been a forgetful old fool." "It could happen to anyone," I told her. I looked at Sophia, waiting for her to chime in, but she had this flat look on her face. "Right, Sophia?" I asked. "Oh, yes." I stood up. I wanted to get going. But Sophia stayed on the couch, still wearing that flat expression. "Sophia?" She rose, finally. "Well, Aunt Grace," was all she said, "I hope next time you won't be so quick to accuse an innocent man." In the car, I asked, "What's the problem, Soph?" She said, "I have no idea Aunt Grace changed her hiding place." "Well, she better change it again," I said, "because already she's told at least 2 people where the new place is." "And so I put the money back in the old place," Sophia went on, as if I hadn't spoken. "What money?" "My money. $2,960. For a second I misunderstood. "You stole that money?" Which didn't make sense, of course, since no money had been stolen, but all Sophia said was, "No." She started the engine, and we pulled away from the curb. "See, I felt so responsible," she said. "I knew Aunt Grace held me to blame for bringing you into her life. Well, I said to myself, all right, I'll just put my own money there to replace the money she's missing. So I took it out of my savings. I let myself in with my key on Aunt Grace's podiatrist day and put the money in the flour bin." "But How would she explain that? First her money is missing, and then it magically isn't?
She could explain it any way she liked, Sophia said. All I cared about was clearing your name.
Then I saw what was bothering me.
You believed I did it. You actually believed I stole that money. Well, I just couldn't stand for her to suspect you, that's all, Sophia said. Well, geez, Sophia. Are you going to start stashing bills every place there's been a burglary I was in the neighborhood of? That could be expensive. No, Sophia said, because I don't have any more to stash. I used my whole savings account. But it's no problem. I'll just steal it back again the next time I'm over there.
Unless, meanwhile, she goes to bake a pie and finds your money before you get to it.
She won't. She keeps her flour in the freezer, not in the flour bin. I could leave it there forever. And after all, it's not for nothing. Because it proves how much I love you, Barnaby.
I have to admit, I was touched. No one had ever done anything like that for me before. Sometimes I thought I'd been right in the first place. Sophia was my angel.
We are probably the only family in America eating potluck Thanksgiving dinner,
my mother said, gazing around the table. Mom's own dish was a redundancy. That's why she was annoyed. She had made one of her famous pumpkin chiffon pies, which turned out to be what Wiki had made, too. Using Mom's recipe, I could see how that might have been a faux pas. Also, there was no turkey. At Jeff's insistence, he and Wiki were hosting the dinner this year, and so everybody assumed that they would supply the turkey. But they hadn't. Wiki had said her oven was too small for a turkey that would feed 10 people. So our menu was 2 pumpkin chiffon pies, Graham's marshmallow yam casserole, Sophia's crock-pot applesauce cake, and a salad that Opal had tossed with a vinaigrette dressing. We were all so glad to see something non-sweet. Her contribution was the hit of the day. After dinner, when Mom and I were briefly alone in the kitchen, she laid a hand on my arm. "Barnaby," she said, "I want you to take this back." She brought out a check and pressed it into my hand. I was slow in the uptake. I peered at it for a moment. Pay to the order of Barnaby Gatlin $8,700? Why? I asked her. "Oh," she said and turned away. "It just seemed the right course of action." "You just want me to stay in my accustomed role," I said. "Now that I've repaid you, you've got nothing to hold over me." "That's absurd." She made a big show of measuring out coffee. "You can never repay me." "Pardon?" "I just did repay you, every cent, in cold cash." She wheeled on me. She said, "Do you honestly believe money will make up for what I went through? Visiting all our high-class neighbors, pleading with them not to press charges? You think you can repay me for that? You can never repay me. Not with 8,000, not with 800,000. Take your money back." "Don't you wish," I said. I ripped the check in two and stormed into the dining room. When Mom brought in the coffee, she bent to rest her tray beside Dad. "Barnaby won't let me give him back his money," she told him. I felt Sophia glance over at me. "I tried to give it back," my mother said, "but he tore up the check." "We'll discuss this some other time, shall we?" my father said pleasantly. "What other time? We hardly ever lay eyes on him." "Margot," my father said, "do you suppose we could make it through one holiday without your tiresome fishwife act?" There was a pause. Then my mother lifted her tray and proceeded back to the kitchen at a dignified pace. A second later, we heard the tray slamming onto the counter. Graham cleared her throat. "Sophia, dear," she said, "what does your family do for Thanksgiving?" "Oh, nothing very exciting," Sophia said.
This year Mother's invited my Aunt Grace. I helped her onto the train, but Lord knows how she'll manage at the other end.
All this was news to me, I can tell you. There was another crash in the kitchen, followed by the tinkling of glass. A metal object clanged so loudly that it gave off an echo like a gong. When the telephone rang, we were all so relieved that every last one of us stirred as if to answer it, but Mom picked it up in the kitchen. Eventually, she appeared in the doorway. "Barnaby," she said, her voice non-committal, not a hair out of place. "That was that Martine person? She says to tell you she has the truck, but she'll bring it by in the morning." Pop asked, "What truck is that?" I said, "Oh, just a, work truck." "Fool kid, sold off the Stingray," my father told my grandpa. Pop looked at me. "You sold the Stingray?" "Well, yes, I did," I said. "Why?" "I needed the money." "The money, son? You could have borrowed money from me. I'd have been glad to lend you money." "Well, see, the whole point was not to be in debt anymore. Not to owe anybody. I'm trying really hard to grow up now, don't you see? I hope you understand." Then Pop said, "Why, sure, son. It was yours to do what you liked with." After that, we had a fairly normal evening, but that was just because all of us were exhausted. As we drove away from the Thanksgiving dinner, Sophia said, "You didn't tell me your mother offered to give you back that money." "How could I? It just now happened," I said. "I don't see why you refused it." I stared at her. I said, "What? You too? It's $8,700 after all. Think of what we could do with that." "Well, lots, obviously, but that's beside the point. I didn't want to worry about that money anymore." "So you'd rather I worry about money?" "You? How do you figure that?" "Well, I'm the one who couldn't buy a new outfit for Thanksgiving because my money's in the flower bin." "So, get it out of the flower bin. You said yourself you've been in touch with your aunt again." "No." "Why not?" I asked her. "Why haven't you got your money?" "Oh, it's never been the right time," she said. "Now would be a good time," I told her, "while your aunt's in Philadelphia." "Barnaby, I can't just sneak in like a thief." All at once, I found her irritating beyond endurance. "I'm probably too definite," I seem to remember her saying. "Too definite for men to feel comfortable with." Darn right she was too definite.